What's up, everybody? This is kind of like a mini episode of my podcast, which is called The Tori Franco Show. And I think I've briefly mentioned this topic before in one of my episodes, the episode on spiritual awakenings. But I wanted to hone in on this one area for a second. The number one blockage that I have come to realize on my own spiritual journey, the number one blockage to any spiritual awakening or any spiritual blockage period is the ego. And I wanted to just give a brief video, a brief explanation in a video about what the ego even is. A lot of y'all probably have heard the word ego before, and I mean, it's used in psychological terms, but it's also used when you're talking about, you know, an asshole who thinks highly of themselves and thinks that they're the shit. So it's taken on, the word ego, I feel like, has taken on a lot of definitions, but I'm pretty sure the ego was coined by Freud, and it's basically a part of our psyche that literally just thinks about the self, but it's put there for a purpose. It's not like we as human beings have this nagging piece of us just to torture us our entire lives. The ego is there to protect us. It's there to initiate fear in our minds, like when we were um when we were cave people running away from wild animals that were going to kill us. We needed some sort of indication that we were in danger. The ego was that, and it's done its evolutionary job doing that, and it still does to this day. So in spirituality terms, because like I've said, and I will continue to say, spirituality and psychology, they go hand in hand. And psychology is the science of all of it. Spirituality is kind of the woo-woo aspect of it. The stuff you can't touch, the stuff you can't really measure. That's where spirituality comes in. But they both are very much so tied together. So in spiritual terms, if you're trying to live spiritually, you're trying to live essentially outside of your ego, because your ego is what brings you back down to earth. Not really. It doesn't ground you. It kind of, I mean, it can put you out of control, but it's the part of your psyche that makes you aware of earthly matters, right? So the car that's beeping at you on the highway, like the ego is like, okay, I'm aware of that. It's hyper aware. Some people's egos are overactive, meaning they can be very selfish. They can be very petty. That's, petty acts are acts out of ego. They can be very fearful. Fear comes from the ego. And what I've come to learn in my own experience, and you guys know if you've been watching my podcast or you whatever, good night. So what I've come to learn in my own experience, and I always speak from my experience, is that the umbrella term for every blockage, spiritual blockage, is the ego. And I'll give you examples so that you can understand this. And I'm going to make this as quick as I possibly can. But basically, when you're living in your ego, you're not living in the heart center, the heart space, the soul center, right? Your soul, if you're a spiritualist, and you believe in spirituality, then you believe that there's a soul that inhabits a body, right? And so when you're within your soul, when you are living within your soul, that part of you, the essence of you, You're not in your ego. The ego is still there. A lot of people talk about killing the ego. There's really no way to kill the ego because it's there for a reason. It's supposed to be there, you know, to protect you and keep you from dying, essentially. But when you're living, when you're spiritually elevating, you're you're living in this space of heart-centeredness where, for instance, an everyday instance of this is like you're driving on the highway and somebody cuts you off, an asshole cuts you off, and um that pisses you off. The ego would want to retaliate with that person. Maybe, I don't know, I've done this before. Maybe put your blinker on, drive into the next lane, speed the hell up so you can get next to them and flip them the hell off and let them know about themselves. When you're spiritual and you're living within that heart center, and the soul is driving the vehicle, which is your body is the vehicle, your soul is driving, right? When your soul, your heart is driving, those things that happen, that person cuts you off and you think to yourself, that's not a me thing, that is a them thing, whatever, why ever they felt they needed to do that and that was okay, that's their problem, not mine, not my place to teach them that lesson. That's heart-centered action. Ego is flipping them off, and a lot of people live within their ego, right? And when you're there, and this is purely my opinion, but when you're in that space of ego, you can't spiritually level up. It's a blockage. When you're fearful of certain things, when you're fearful of experiencing certain things, learning certain things, doing certain things, that's ego. And if you're fearful of doing something so much so to the point where you're not doing it, you're not growing as a person, as a human, right? So take this word spirituality, take it out of the equation, and enter in the word growth or self-development. It's all the same, right? At least to me, spiritual growth is the same thing as self-development, or just growth in general as a human being, emotional maturity, all of that kind of ties into each other. And so the ego is the one and only blockage when it comes to spiritual awakenings or emotional maturity or psychological growth, whatever you want to call it, however you want to term it, define it. That's entirely up to you. I just say spirituality because for me it has become spiritual in its own practice. And so the first step to becoming spiritual, becoming a spiritual being, or living within that realm of heart-centeredness is to quiet the ego. And I'll probably talk about this in another either blog post or episode of the podcast. The way to do that I have found that has helped me tremendously is meditation. And the best way to begin meditating is by starting in increments. There is no such thing as a bad meditation. There is no such thing as being bad at meditation. That just simply, it does not exist. It's not a thing. It's a very common misconception. A very common misconception with meditation is that you have to quiet your brain. That's not even close to the case. You start with 1 minute a day. And this is purely to just quiet the ego. You think of you think of the connectedness between you and everything else around you. The person who cut you off, the trees, the people who go to the same school as you, the people in your classroom. You think of how connected you can be, or you are. You literally are to every single thing that exists. And that is how you remain out of your ego and into your heart center and your soul. And I can promise you, by doing that and that alone, A, you will spiritually level up so much quicker. And B, you will end up seeing life in a different way. And people in a different way. And you'll be at more peace with yourself, but with others around you. A lot less wanting to control things, because the ego is the one that wants to control. The ego wants to be the driver at all times. And in life, the ego is going to need to drive at certain times in life, no doubt, but it doesn't need to be the resident in the driver's seat. And so that's just a little tip, a little quick vlog on what the blockages are in spirituality, what the one blockage is, and how to kind of get around that. So I hope that helps. If y'all have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, thanks for being patient with me. I love you guys, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out.